Peace. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of the File Playland. As always, I'm your File Player. Wanted to make a video and a series of videos of underrated albums, in my mind, or the most underrated albums in my mind. And I wanted to start off with the R&B one because I'm not gonna include that much R&B. I kind of like got out of the genre, fucking when they started doing too many featuring a fucking rapper in every R&B song, like especially when I started hating like rap, fucking in the mid 2000s. But and there's some R&B singers that I like in the mid 2000s, like fucking Neo. Um, Neo might be the only like pure R&B singer of that. Like, well, I like Miguel. Fuck, he's alright. But um, nobody could frux with my probably my favorite R&B band of all time, and that's Jodeci. And you do gotta call them a band because they actually had real production in a lot of their albums. Devontae Swing, very underrated producer, especially when it came to R&B. R&B music is a lot harder to produce than hip hop, but Jodeci was the shit back in the day. I mean, when they were on the come up, they didn't really have that commercial appeal, and it was really like hood, like black music. And that was like what was dope about it. Like, they had the look about them, as far as dressing the part. It wasn't like Guy and fucking all these New Jack Swing bands like that dressed in suits and fucking danced, choreographed. And I mean, I'm not a big Guy fan. Like, I think Guy is like mad overrated. I can't stand Aaron Hall. But Jodeci didn't have that. Like, they would rock the White Sox hats with the leather jackets and the shades. Like, there was something G about them. I mean, like granted, like it was probably biting off the LA look at that time, but the LA look wasn't. Or the LA hip hop wasn't humongous, like where it just got like kind of like off the ground. In fact, some of you may not know, but one of the people behind this album, which I consider one of the most underrated albums of all time as far as R&B goes. The show, The After Party, The Hotel, was actually I'm not gonna say produced, but it may have been A&R. But Suge Knight did have a role in this album, even though it wasn't on Death Row. But and granted, like Jodeci had good albums before this, like like or two good albums before this. Forever My Lady, it's alright. Um, but then they followed it up with Diary of a Mad Band, which was a great album. But and they already had like that look to them, like the fact that they had like real R&B chops. They could sing, JoJo's like gravelly voice. Um, KC, like he had like that sort of Stevie Wonderish, like whiny, but it like very pure voice, like when you talk about KC. But they just made like a dope tandem. Like, they worked well off each other. But the production was one of the biggest things to me. I think like when Casey and JoJo went out on their own, like it was whack as fuck. Like, I think if they would have stood as a band together, they would have had a lot of the fanfare, and maybe more of the fanfare that R. Kelly got like in the early to late 2000s, like that hood appeal. Like, R. Kelly, in spite of everything that happened with him, still has a lot of like love, like from the hood, and that'll never go away. And I think Jodeci, if they would have stood together like this whole time, and not make Casey and JoJo, which was like kind of like poppy, like white people music, like that fucking piece of shit song "All My Life." Um, every Casey and JoJo song was whack as fuck. There's not one Casey and JoJo song that is even palatable to me. And maybe it's me being spiteful because they broke up, um, uh, one of the greatest bands of the '90s in one of the greatest eras of music, the '90s, to fucking make piece of shit fucking Casey and JoJo. a shitty ass tandem. Then you started seeing like the problems that they had, like as far as KC being a drunk and JoJo smoking krills. Or you started hearing about it more. If they would have stood as a band, I think you know a band of like four hood dudes like that looked the part, fucking around and like blazing chicks at the hotel and like getting drunk. That would have been cool. But then you're making songs like All My Life, where like fucking stupid bitches from college campuses, white girls are singing fucking close to me, you're like my mother, like close to me, you're like, like, and then you can't really be like that hood band no more, like, and two people aren't a band. Like Jodeci was a band, in spite of the fact that they didn't play with instruments live all the time, except for like the piano and drums sometimes. But you better believe, like in the studio, it was a fucking band. But it was just a dope ass album. I mean, a lot of the '90s albums had like interludes and like skits. This album didn't have skits, but they had a lot of interludes, like these little 2 minute breaks in between songs where they had like real dope production. Actually, one of the best interludes or skits of all time, like a free song basically, was on this album. Is actually a song called Room 454, Devontae's Intermission, which actually sounds like two songs if you listen to it. But this album is sick as fuck. And on top of that, too, I mean, like something else that was happening in the '90s, that it was a double album. It was two CDs, and it was about 20 songs. And it wasn't like no shitty ass songs on this album. The one song that I didn't like on this album, I mean, there were two songs. There was a song called "Good Love," which is the last song on the album. It was like an acapella. That shit was not that great. But the song "Get On Up" I think was on this album too, and I've always hated the song "Get On Up." That shit is like a fucking party song, and or like a barbecue type song. But this album, the reason I don't like "Get On Up" in this album is because the show, the after party, the hotel, it was like a theme. Like everything seemed like they were doing a show, and then it went to an after party, and then they just started blazing chicks at a hotel, like, and it followed that theme in the album. Like it seemed like it's three courses that are happening within this album. But it was just a sick album. And Devontae Swing, I mean, like, a lot of you may or may not know that after this he kind of like lost it. He started like kind of like lost his mind a little bit, which was sad to see because he was mad talented and he tried to do like a solo project, and that shit was corny as fuck. Like, I mean, like, and I of any member of this band that I like, it was Devontae first. Like, the homeboy that used to rap on the album, what the fuck his name? Dalvin. He would like. I mean, he was alright. Like, it fit into it, but it wasn't like, I ain't fucking buying no albums for no Dalvin. But I always, I mean, everybody's favorite member of this band was clearly JoJo. I always liked the way KC sounded way better. Like JoJo had like his own shit, like the raspy, like probably like druggy voice. But Casey's voice was fucking I don't know, it was just magnificent. Like I think if he would have went solo, he probably would have had a better shot. Not that I would have advised like him to do it, but his voice was just so ill. Like, and he was like playing second fiddle to like JoJo a lot of times when it came to the dynamic of the band. But the again, like my favorite member was always Devontae. Like Devontae's production at that time was dope as fuck. And I mean, like he would reserve his production to just Jodeci, which was dope. Um, Maybe the fact that he probably like used all his good shit like for the first two albums and then this album, which essentially the show that after party the hotel was Jodeci's last album. Like they made a compilation album a couple years ago, but I think it has new material on it. I ain't fuck with it, but this album was just The production was great. Engineering was on point. Like I remember listening to this album in Puerto Rico, um, and like it's like right when I started like really like fiending for girls or like had like the balls to talk to chicks. And I just thought that like the way like this album played out was how like you really had to like fucking take it there with chicks, and it kind of worked. I mean, to be frank, because I was a total pussy. Like when I first came onto this, I was probably like 12 when I first heard this album, and it was actually my brother's CD, and I couldn't put it down. I mean, I was in Puerto Rico for like 3 weeks, and I just had a great time. Like, I mean, like fucking because we're like these New Yorican cats that speak Spanish, and like um, in this like little hick town in Puerto Rico, and like we're getting like a lot of love because my brothers are really good looking guys, like my two older brothers, So they were just showing us love, and like it was like my first like time like really trying to put game down, like fucking talk to broads like in a like manly fashion, I guess. Like, and this was like the album that kind of like inspired it. Like, I would literally like wake up and listen to this album like front to back on my grandmother's stoop in PR, like looking at the mountains and shit, and waiting for the girls to come home like from high school. But I've always loved this album. But as far as my favorite songs on the album, I mean, "Freaking You" was dope. Um, I mean, "Love You for Life" is a dope ass song. I'm making a video. And there's actually an interlude song. It's called "Fallen." And if you watch the video of "Love You for Life," before that video takes off, like before they actually get into like the crux of the video and like start singing the song "Love You for Life," he's actually singing the song "Fallen." I mean, yeah, the song "Falling" on piano, like a acapella version. And that version, I always thought they should have done on the album, like where it's just the piano. But regardless, like it was still dope. And "Freaking You" was the shit too. I mean, like "Freaking You," the video was sick as fuck. Like, and the song was highly underrated. They wouldn't give this song and the album a lot of love on MTV. They gave it some, um, but not like hard body like that. Like I did find out about this album from the single "Freaking You," like just the video where they're in concert and like broads are trying to rush the stage, and then to see it and it's like a black group singing R&B, but they look like gangster. I mean, these dudes weren't built like that. Like they were from North Carolina and Virginia. Not to this, anybody in North Carolina and Virginia, because there's dudes that are out there that are killers and that will probably peel my hat back if I talk that kind of shit like out there. But it just fit. Like it just looked dope. Like it just seemed like for a 12-year-old um that the shit was just like gangster. Like these dudes are singing R&B, not dancing, um dressed like goons, sunglasses at night. Like it was just really good album, like front to back. The album's dope, and honestly, like if you add up all the interludes and all that shit, that's probably like 20 minutes on its own, like 15 minutes, which in today's standards would be like a third of an album. But you had like really really well produced interludes on this album, and you got a lot of them, and if you add it up, it's like one third of an album, and it's just interludes, and it's just really really good instrumentals and production. But really, I mean, like if you could like check this album out, it's sick as fuck. Like I love it. But let me know what you guys think. And I'm not gonna be covering other R&B albums that much. I mean, because I probably will, like, but it'll probably be like maybe R. Kelly. But some people are, don't like R. Kelly anymore. And the thing is too, I'm not gonna front. Like when I first started coming on to R. Kelly, motherfuckers were playing them the fuck out, and I couldn't stand it, like, because they would play the same whack ass songs all the time. Um, I started like liking R. Kelly like kind of after, like where I actually like listened to an album because of a broad I was fucking with. And then I started liking it, but like because I had the chance to listen to the R. Kelly songs that weren't like big singles, and like you know, but like it's not like an underrated album. Like my favorite R. Kelly album is TP2, but that's not really like a underrated album. Like compared to like Jodeci, I think people kind of like forgot about Jodeci because it's stupid ass fucking Casey and JoJo. Where R. Kelly, he's still R. Kelly. Like R. Kelly could still tour. Like Jodeci like could probably tour, but like they'll probably be at like the Beacon Theater or some shit, maybe a smaller venue. Um, Casey and JoJo, I mean, if they tour, it's not gonna be no hood shit. Like it would be like a watered down, washed up, like fucking 40 something, 30 something year old, like white girl fest, but like 30 people or some shit. So I mean, like we like Jodeci is no more in my eyes. So like in that sense, like that's why I wanted to make this one like my underrated album because there's not gonna be a Jodeci comeback or nobody's really checking for them like that. But it's sad to see because they made this album, which was an absolute classic, and it was their last album. And like literally like Jodeci ain't coming back. Cause I mean like if you got like Guy together, let's say, like or Guy came back together, um, some people would come out for it. I mean like Guy, as much as I don't like them, like they're um, you know they got like a following still, or they could have a following. Boys to Men with three people could still like draw like a little bit of a crowd. But Jodeci, I mean, like since they broke up, like they really won't record again. They won't tour again, so that's why it's like kind of like lost to us, and it's underrated. Um, you know, we're going on almost 20 years since this album came out. Yeah, 20. Is it 20? Yeah, 20 years almost. Um, but if you could, no, it's more than 20 years. The fuck am I talking about? Uh, yeah, it's 25 years. Shit, So yeah, if you could, don't check it out, man. A lot of babies were made to this music, and even though it's like it has a freaky factor to it, it's still like uh, has like a romantic flair. Like it's not dirty or filthy. You know what I'm saying? Like even though like JoJo, like when he would get on stage, like that was kind of like what he was about. Like like fucking like humping on the stage and all that stupid shit. But the album, like was well contrasted because of KC. And not that I'm dissing JoJo, but they had that balance. Um, but yeah, I mean, like if you could, man, please check out the show, The After Party, The Hotel, one of the finest R&B albums of all time. With that, I'm out. Peace.